Hey folks, David Stewart here. Coming March 27th, the keys to prolific creativity to help you take your creative output to the next level and unlock your hidden master. Now, what do you do with your stacks of books? What do you do with huge piles of physical books? If you are a person like me and prefers to read physical books and ends up collecting a lot of them, what do you do with them? So this came up in a recent video I did on the ebook crash. Ebooks are really convenient. They take up no physical space. It's just the space of your device, or they're stored on the cloud as part of like your Amazon account. It's really, really convenient as far as the physical space goes to keep track of ebooks versus having a big collection of physical books. But I like the experience of a physical book. I like to keep a physical book around. So I came up with a couple of guidelines or rules that I think can help you to thin down your stack. So the first one is, if you've read a book and you don't expect to reread it, meaning maybe you thought it was okay, maybe you just don't really care that much about it, you just don't think you'll reread it again, you should give that book away. You should either give it to a friend who wants it, you should donate it to charity, or you can sell it to a used bookstore, get some store credit, and maybe pick out a book that you actually do want to read. So that's the first one. If you know that you're not going to reread it, you should get rid of the book in whatever way you want to get rid of it. The other one is, if you have reread a book, if you've read a book twice, that means you should hold on to that book. That's a book you shouldn't get rid of. This is something I found with myself and with most readers that I know. If you've read a book twice, chances are you're going to read it a third time. That means it should stay on the shelf for when you feel like reading that book the third time. I've read Lord of the Rings way more than 3 times. I have a lot of reasons to go back to it. I really enjoy it. And that's true of lots of different fantasy books that I've read over the years. I end up reading them 2, 3, 4 times because they are good and I really enjoy reading them, and I pick up new stuff each time I go and read them. So if you've read it twice, you keep it. If you don't think you'll ever read it again, you should get rid of it. Now, if you've held onto it because you think you might reread it and it's been a couple of years, say like 4 or 5 years, and it's just been sitting on your shelf, that's when you should probably donate or give to charity. That means you're really not that interested in rereading it. And the worst that could happen is that you have to go acquire a new copy of the book some years from now when you actually do want to reread it. So if you're waffling about getting rid of your copy of Stephen King's The Stand, don't worry. There are many more copies. You can always pick up another one if you really want to reread it. But if not, if you never choose to go back to it, at least it's not sitting on your shelf. Now, the last one is, if you bought a book and never finished it and put it on the shelf, that one should probably go as well, because that means you really aren't interested in reading the book. So give it away to somebody who actually is interested in reading it and free up a little bit of space. So the first one, if you've read it, if you read it and you don't plan to reread it, get rid of it. If you've read it twice, you should pretty much keep it because you'll probably read it again. And if you haven't reread it and it's been sitting on your shelf after the first read for more than a couple of years, say 4 or 5 years, time to let that book pass on to its new owner. And if you've never finished the book, it's been several months since you tried to read it, you should probably get rid of it. And even as I say that, I know everybody's thinking about their copy of Infinite Jest sitting on the shelf, how they just couldn't manage to get through it. It's okay. Infinite Jest can go to somebody else to attempt to read it. So go ahead and get rid of those books that you never finished. You have my permission to do that. That'll help thin down the collection a lot. Now, the last little bit I want to say is that I think you should store your books on a shelf, not in a box. Okay, so I stored my books in boxes for quite a while because I was moving around a lot. And one of the things I found is that I never opened up the boxes and read the books. So years later, when I opened up the boxes and looked at the books, I realized most of them I should have donated. And the only ones I kept are the ones that I knew I had read twice, and those I put back on the shelf. But if I noticed this, if a book is on the shelf, if it's accessible, I walk by the shelves, they're outside my office. I walk by them every day. If I see a book I want to read, I can just pick it up and read it, even just read some of it and get some enjoyment out of it. So if it's on the shelf, you're reminded all the time that you have this book, that it's a book you can reread, and when you're in a mood to reread it, you can pick it up and look at it. Last little thing I'll say is about reference books. We used to hold on to a lot of these reference books. And this is something that I realize I probably need to get rid of, because most reference books can be easily replaced by the internet at this point. If I have forgotten some random factoid, it's probably quicker for me to go find the resource for something online than it is to go look through some, music theory book from my university days, trying to figure out what I've actually forgotten. So a lot of those old textbooks, it's okay to get rid of those too. And chances are, if you haven't ever used the book for reference, you're never going to use the book for reference if you've been out of school for a couple of years. And I found this with most of my textbooks. Never even looked at them after the semester was done for the class that I was in. There was nothing relevant for them in the future. And if there was something relevant, I could just go look it up online. So that's the last little bit for you. So thanks so much for watching. Give me your thoughts down below. How do you thin out the style of books? How do you deal with them? I have a bunch of bookshelves. I have a whole giant wall of bookshelves, and they're completely full of books. So I have to actively do this really for myself. So let me know what you do down in the comments, and I'll see you guys next time. Keys to Prolific Creativity is coming out March 27th. You can pre-order it for $2.99. Have a great one.